In the last episode, we talked about how changes in salinity, acidity, and humidity is used to preserve our food. In this episode, we'll talk about oxygen levels and fermentation. Welcome to the Conceptual Kitchen. Most bacteria need oxygen to survive, and one simple way to keep them from spoiling our food is to remove, or at least reduce, the amount of oxygen present in our foodstuffs. The simplest way of achieving this is through vacuum packing. As much as possible of the air, including oxygen, is sucked out of the packaging, leaving it air and thus oxygen-free. Another way to remove the oxygen is to exchange it with something else. In the case of potato chips, for example, the oxygen is removed and nitrogen is inserted instead. Nitrogen is an inert gas, so bacterial growth and other processes of decay do not receive the energy they need, and the chips are thus kept crispy and edible for a long time. Limiting the access to oxygen is also part of general canning and packaging procedures. A tight seal is created around the foodstuff, and once the small amount of oxygen left within the seal has been used, the bacteria die out or hibernate. Once the seal is broken, bacteria has access to oxygen again and can continue to grow. That is why foodstuffs have a lot shorter shelf life once opened compared to when they are sealed. The last process of food preservation we'll be talking about in this series is fermentation. The science of fermentation is called zymology and was founded in 1856 by Louis Pasteur. But the use of fermentation goes back further than human history, and evidence of the use of fermentation has been found all over the world. Fermentation is used in cooking more widely than most people are aware of. Here is a list of a few of the most common fermented foods and beverages. These can broadly be sorted into 9 different fermentation groups. Grain-based fermentation, such as bread and beer. Fruit-based fermentation, such as in wine. Dairy-based fermentation, such as in yogurt and in cheese. Bean-based fermentation, such as soy sauce. Meat-based fermentation, such as salami. Vegetable-based fermentation, such as olives. Honey-based fermentation, such as in mead. Tea-based fermentation, such as kombucha, and fish-based fermentation, such as in surströmming. Fermentation as a chemical process is rather complex, but simply put, it is allowing certain bacteria, or more commonly yeasts, to live and grow in our foodstuffs. It is basically preserving food by encouraging the growth of benign bacteria instead of harmful bacteria. Yeast and bacteria live and grow by drawing energy from carbohydrates, and in this process, the carbohydrates are either transformed into lactic acids or alcohol and carbon dioxide. In both beer and bread, fermentation creates alcohol and carbon dioxide. The alcohol is maintained in the liquid of the beer, and the carbon dioxide escapes as foam. In bread, less alcohol is formed due to the shorter fermentation time, and the rest is burned off in the process of baking. But the CO2 is trapped in the bread as bubbles when the bread rises during proving. The same process takes place in fruits when fermenting cider or wine, and in honey and rice when making mead and sake. But it also happens naturally when ripe fruit is left underground, and natural yeasts ferment the fruit instead of other bacteria rotting it, with entertaining results throughout the natural kingdom. In dairy products, beans, meat, vegetables and tea, the process creates different kinds of acids that changes the pH levels of the foodstuffs, and in that way preserving them and creating very different and often rather powerful flavor compounds. And that's how we humans use fermentation to prepare and preserve our food. We allow yeasts and other bacteria not harmful to our health to grow in our ingredients, and through the transformation of carbohydrates into alcohol, gas and acids, to keep our food safe and enjoyable. So those were the 6 basic ways in which we prepare and preserve our food: through temperature, salinity, acidity, humidity, oxygen levels, and fermentation. We return to all of these concepts later as we move deeper into the science and mysteries of gastronomy. We'll return in 2 weeks' time. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay hungry for the next episode.